Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to cover a fundamental chess strategy concept, the attacking play in the middle game with opposite colored bishops. It's interesting that a lot of chess players think that opposite colored bishops are usually a guaranteed draw. It might be often true in the endgame, because with no other pieces on the board it becomes difficult to promote pawns when the opponent's bishop and king control the squares that the pawn must cross. But in the middle game, especially with the rooks and queens still on the board, the opposite colored bishops often facilitate powerful attacks. Why does it happen? Because your bishop allows you to target and control squares that your opponent's bishop cannot defend, effectively giving you an extra piece in the attack. In other words, in the opposite colored bishop's middle games, the side with the initiative often wins. Let's start by taking a look at the position on the board. It's white to move. How would you play here? Please pause the video and think before we go ahead. Okay, this middle game with the opposite colored bishop happened in the classical game between Falkbeer and Anderson. Falkbeer is remembered for his contribution to chess theory. For example, he introduced the Falkbeer counter gambit, which is currently one of the main lines as the king's gambit declined. Anderson, on the other hand, is known for his attacking style. For instance, his Immortal game and the Evergreen game are among the most famous attacking games in the chess history. Here, white played b4. Falkbeer played white, Anderson played black. Okay, this position with opposite color bishops might look equal and drawish, because everything is protected. Pawn was attacked, it was moved forward. Now queen protects pawn on a2. However, in reality, white just blundered by giving the opponent important tempo for the attack. Black is just winning here, because they play c6, follow with bishop c7, and attack on dark square. So c6 was played. Notice that white bishop on f3 is kind of useless, because it cannot help to defend on the complex of weak dark squares. Effectively, black is attacking with the extra dark squared bishop. Okay, white played rook e8. Okay, what else they can do? Maybe they can try to play rook e7. Threatening, but bishop 7, now checkmate threatened. Of course, we can give away exchange here, but the resulting position is clearly hopeless for white, because black is up exchange and a lot of open lines here. White would not be able to build any fortress. Okay, but after c6, rook e8 was played. Now bishop c7, checkmate threatened. It was trade of rooks, rook takes, again, checkmate is threatened. And king g1 looks like the only move, except giving away queen for bishop, which is obviously hopeless because it would be lost by material. And now black checkmates. Check. Then check from other side with bishop. King moved to e1, queen g3 check. King moved, check again. And this is checkmate. This is checkmate. Bishop is controlling, queen is attacking, and rook is attacking. Notice that actually it might be a bit faster checkmate if immediately queen e5 was played, because now if bishop e4 it's already checkmate, and if bishop e2 also checkmate from this side. Queen attacks, rook is cutting off, and bishop is cutting off. So very quick win by black in this original position. So is black winning here? Actually not. According to engine, position is close to equality. It's a very complex position actually. So engine says that white in this position should play rook e7 as the best option. Now what to do for black? White is attacking pawn on g7, black is attacking pawn on b2. Strangely enough, main move by engine is g5, and with complicated play. But let's see what happens if black simply takes pawn. Now, tables are turned. White is winning. White simply plays queen d5. And now white wins by force. Black cannot take queen because it would be checkmate on the back rank. So what you do? So queen was played to d5, checkmate threatened. So the only move is c6, but then rook is sacrificed. King has to take. Queen takes. Now the only move, king a6, because if king moves back to b8, then obviously checkmate him. So we need to move king on a6. Then another check. Bishop a5 is forced, and another check. And now rook b5 is forced, because if king moves to b6, we have checkmate here. So rook b5 is forced, and a4. And now white gets rook back, and attack is still continuing. Let's say queen comes, take. Obviously, white is not trading queens here. White keeps attacking, check. Now what black can even do? They can play queen b6 or bishop b6. Let's say bishop b6, then check from this side, game is over. Queen a5, we take queen. Oh no, we don't even take queen, it would be immediate checkmate. And if queen b6, let's see, how do we proceed here? Check. Queen b5. Now, we have nice idea here. Rook b1. Because if queen takes, it's checkmate from this side. So basically, white is winning by force at this moment if black makes mistake with taking pawn. Again, according to engine, g5 is necessary. Best move by white take. Rook f2, best move, queen by, and we have some complicated play. Engine actually shows line with bishop d6, threatening checkmate, queen g1, bishop takes e7, and game continues here. Close to equality, but very complicated position. That's how complicated middle games with opposite color bishops might be. They look drawish, but if we have these attacks, one mistake, and one of the sides is already winning. Okay, let's go to our next example. This middle game with the opposite colored bishops happened in the third game of the 1961 World Championship rematch between Mikhail Tal and Mikhail Botvinnik. At that moment in history, Tal was the world champion after unseating Botvinnik in the 1960s match. By the rules, however, Botvinnik was entitled to the rematch, and Botvinnik won the rematch with a big score, 13-8, and regained the world champion title. But in this particular game, Mikhail Botvinnik plays white and Mikhail Tal plays black. Last move for white was bishop c4. Let's see what's going on here. No matter the opposite colored bishops and the equal material, this position is far from a dead draw. White has a significant advantage here due to several factors. First, white bishop is much stronger than the black bishop. This is number one. Second, white pawns can move forward. e5, f4, g5, pawns can go as a chain and attack. And third factor is h-file. White can bring rook on h-file and attack black king. With the last move, moving bishop from d5 to c4, Botvinnik aims to consolidate his position on the queen side. Later, white can start an attack on the light squares, making use of its pawn chain and the open h-file. Notice that taking pawn on b7 instead might give black some counterplay. If we play bishop takes b7 and rook takes d4 is blunder. Okay, let's start from rook takes d4. If we take, spin here, black simply plays c6 and bishop is lost. Let's say rook f d1, black takes and black is up material. So this is obvious blunder, but let's see what might happen if bishop takes pawn on b7. Now black probably would play d3. The idea is to fork after pawn is taken on d3. Queen b5. Now it's fork, attacking rook, attacking bishop. Still, white can cover. c6. Now, bishop under pressure and rook is attacked. White has only one move, a4. After queen takes a4, white saves from the spin, and we have some complicated position. Let's say rook c1, a5, rook takes, probably trading rooks, a4 pushing pawn, and a3. So according to engines, white is still winning, but in practical game against Mikhail Tal, who played extremely well in unclear, complicated positions, it would be a wrong choice for Botvinnik to let black to get such counterplay. Okay, so again, Botvinnik played bishop c4, trying to stop black's play on queen side. Okay, Tal played c5, trying to open lines on queen side. b5. Another strong positional move by Botvinnik. White locks the queen side, preventing the counterplay there. In addition, the black bishop is restricted by the c5 pawn. So now white can concentrate on moving the pawn chain forward to gain the space and attacking the black king. Okay, bishop f6. Tal improves bishop. f4. Pawns are start coming forward. So now e5 threatened, g5 threatened. What you do? d3. Good practical chance. Tal sacrifices a pawn to free his bishop, and because this bishop was about to be locked with e5 pawn move. Doesn't help much though. So rook takes, bishop takes d3. But let's see what would happen if Tal didn't play d3. Let's say to prevent e5, he plays g6. Then white probably pushes, bishop e7, rook probably comes on h file, king g7, queen will improve, and pawn is coming. Not much can be done in this position. It's basically winning for white. Okay, but this d3 was played, pawn sacrificed, and bishop is active for black now. Okay, white simply rolls the pawns, g6, rook h1. White improves all his pieces, getting ready for the final attack. Rook on h file, g7, and queen comes. Now, pawn on b7 attacked, b6, bishop c4. And Tal resigned because white's attack is unstoppable. But let's see what would happen if black continued. Okay, let's say black plays queen e7. Now white pushes pawn forward, see it, and pushes more. And the idea here that black cannot take. If they take, nice checkmating attack follows. Let's say if take, white has sacrifice, and after king takes, queen h4, and some nice checkmate here, crisscross. Okay, let's see what else could be played. Let's say queen d7. Okay, pushing. Let's say bishop b2, attacking pawn, opening queen, a4, rook d8. And white can simply come with a queen because the endgame would be still a win due to passed pawns. Let's say black tries to avoid it. White put kings on h3. Now white has queen f6 threat, so more or less black needs to trade queens. And then white pushes pawn. So rook moves, and now king simply starts coming. King comes, and here we can even play g4 immediately, and pawns are rolling. Okay, what else can be done? Okay, maybe queen a8. Or immediately trading queens. White can refuse, play bishop d5 and attack, but let's see what happens if queens are traded. So if we trade queens, still difficult position. Let's squeeze here, squeeze more. Now rebuild king, bring king closer, and white pawns start coming. e4, rook g7, maybe trying to stop by threatening. Let's say let's go on d file. Let's say black blocks. And now we can try to do something like this. Push here, let's say we play e4, bring rook, and break through somewhere on a file. Approximate lines illustrating why Tal resigned. But let's look again at the original position. So before bishop c4 was played. If we just go by common ideas that it's always draw with opposite colored bishops, it would be completely wrong evaluation. In fact, after bishop c4, white has a significant advantage. Again, bishop is better, pawns can move, and white has play on each file. This is more than enough for a win. Let's go to our next example. This middle game happened in the fourth game of the 1985 World Championship match between Anatoly Karpov, who was the world champion at this moment, and Garry Kasparov, who won this match and became the next world champion. Anatoly Karpov played white, Garry Kasparov played black. It was white's move, and white played knight takes e6. So Karpov traded on e6, reaching opposite colored bishop middle game and giving Kasparov a strategic choice to either play with the isolated d5 pawn after taking on e6 with queen, or make the center stronger by taking on e6 with the pawn. This trade was a critical moment for black because Kasparov needed to determine the correct trade and pawn structure for further play. It was played in the game f takes e6, a strategic mistake by black, which is not even marked as mistake by engines. Nevertheless, by human terms, Kasparov made the wrong choice with this trade because now the complex of light squares on the king side is weak. All the squares are weak. In addition, the e6 pawn is weak. And black king is a long-term target. Kasparov obviously understood those factors, but he probably decided the control of the c file and potential play against f2 if white ever plays e4 should compensate for the static weaknesses. However, it turned out as the game progressed that white got a stable, small advantage and long-term pressure by playing on the light squares, while black was not able to find any good counterplay. Eventually, Karpov converted this pressure into a win. The correct play was queen takes e6. Let's see what would happen if queen takes e6 is played. Very likely, white will concentrate on attacking this pawn. Play bishop f3 and trying to bring rooks, attacking d5 pawn. So black needs to bring rooks and protect the pawn. So rook d8 should be played. Oh, by the way, notice that it's important which rook you put on d file first. If you play rook d7, this is suddenly tactical blunder because we have alignment on diagonal. And now white simply plays h3 and bishop g4 wins material and wins game. But if black plays correctly, which is expected, then white brings rook, another rook comes, h3 still follows. Now black regroups, no skewer here, and after these moves, most likely d4 would be played with complete equality. But this didn't happen. Again, after trade at this moment, black played f takes e6, strategic mistake. Okay, we already discussed this position. Now Karpov played bishop g4. Good move. White should be careful not to give black any counterplay or favorable trades. Let's go a little bit back. So if at this moment, let's say we play queen g6, looks good with immediate attack on the light squares, but it doesn't work because black has queen a5 attacking our rook and pawn, fork. Let's say we protect and black takes pawn. Now we build the battery, but we cannot progress further. Let's say black simply takes pawn, we check, and it turns out that black king will hide on e7 and white is risking to lose this position. Alternatively, let's say at this moment we play rook f1, improving rook, and black would play queen b4, threatening the trade. Now black is threatening to take on d2 and play rook c1, trading a lot of pieces and gets in control of c-file. So let's say white plays bad move, a3, allowing it. Now trade happens. Now rook c1, forcing rook d1, and this would be favorable position for black. This would be potential loss by white. But Karpov played well. Again, at this moment, he played good move, bishop g4. Now bishop targeting e6 pawn, tying up queen to the defense of e6 pawn. Okay, Kasparov played rook c4. Possible move. Of course, it's many moves can be played here. Let's say rook c6, protecting pawn on e6, and then queen can play. In this case, let's say rook f1, maybe queen b4, maybe queen g6, queen e7. It's still the same position. White has potential attack on diagonal sooner or later. Okay, but it was played at this moment rook c4, attacking bishop, and white played h3, protected bishop. Queen c6. Okay, now black is controlling c-file and trying to trade some pieces. Queen d3 was played. White should avoid exchanging major pieces in this position because such exchanges might quickly lead to complete equality. King h8. Prophylactic move, and engines like this move. But it seems that at some moment white might get extra chances because the battery on this diagonal at some moment might threaten checkmate on h7. Again, we don't know when, we don't know where, but potentially this is extra tempo for white. Probably should be played something like this, b6, a5 in some order. So b6, g3, a5, and the same strategic situations, but black improved on queen side. But king h8 was played. Now rook f1, a5. So now black wants to fix the pawn on b2 by playing a4. Karpov prevents it. Rook c3, attacking queen, queen moves, and now rook f8. So basically black is trying to put long-term pressure on this pawn in case white ever plays e4. Instead of this, maybe rook c2 could be played. Then white will trade rooks, but not trade queens. Playing queen b5 and still keeping initiative, going after the queen side weaknesses. Also pawn on e6 is still weak. Okay, this didn't happen, rook f8, bishop h5. Now Karpov consolidated position on the queen side and now starts regrouping of its bishop and queen to the b1, h7 diagonal for further attack on the complex of weak light squares. Okay, b5. Kasparov still maintains pressure on the f-file and on the c-file, and improving on queen side. So the last move aims to support the rook on c3 with b4 pawn once pawn moves there, making it difficult for white to get rid of the c3 rook. So bishop g6, bishop regrouped, bishop d8. So black tries to regroup to be in the best defensive position to try to stop the white queen from attacking on the light squares. So bishop d3 was played, b4, and queen comes forward, threatening queen g6. Stopped. Now what to do? Karpov finds very good move e4, opening the lines at the right moment. Now the situation becomes dangerous for black because it's not easy to stop the play on the b1, h7 diagonal and play in the center. So bishop g5, trying to play on weak diagonal after pawn moved, and maybe somewhere rook f4. Rook c2, practically forced. Because if you play rook e2, black has tactics. They can play rook f4, forcing queen to g3, and winning with this pin. So black wins a piece. So rook c2 was more or less forced. Trade. This trade was not forced and might be a mistake. So better option probably was queen c8 And it looks like black had better chances for successful defense with this move because white would need to trade some major pieces, which should make the defense for black easier. Let's see what might happen. Takes d5. Taken back. Notice that immediate rook takes c2, not winning rook, because white has queen e4, the double attack. Threatening checkmate, threatening rook, taking piece back, and after g6, bishop takes c2, black position is too weak. g6 is weak, and e6 is weak. So this would be probably winning for white. But if e takes d5, maybe white needs to trade here, and then play rook e2. Now black king a bit locked on the last rank, so white still has initiative, but might be draw later in endgame. Let's say rook c1, trading, king moves, king g8, bishop g6, threatening rook e8. So stopping, white improves, black stays, and white still maintains some pressure in this endgame because the black king is locked on the back rank. But probably black should be able to hold a draw here with a careful defense. Okay, all this didn't happen. Rook takes c2 was played, then bishop takes rook, and queen c6. Queen e2, regrouping queen. Now black played queen c5, threatening potentially rook takes f2 followed by bishop e3, some tactics. Rook f1. Even with rook sitting in the passive position, the defense is not easy for black, because white is about to attack on b1, h7 diagonal. Okay, queen c3 was played, trade of pawns happens, and bishop b1. Now black cannot prevent the formation of the attacking battery on b1, h7 diagonal, queen d2, offering trade of queens. White obviously refused. So trade of queens would be a serious strategic mistake because white will have a draw in endgame. Let's say bishop takes, white tries to win a pawn with skewer, bishop moves, white wins pawn, but rook d8. And now white forced to trade rooks. So see, why forced? Because you can, let's see, at this moment, you cannot take pawn on a5 because rook d1 would be winning for black. And after trade happens, white is up a pawn, but this is a dead draw in the pure opposite color bishop endgame. Karpov obviously knows it, played queen e5. Rook d8, queen f5, threatening checkmate in one move, king g8, and check. This game was adjourned at this moment, with queen e6 being a sealed move. The extensive analysis by both Karpov's team and Kasparov's team confirmed that the position was lost for black. Game adjournments disappeared from the chess tournaments after the 1990s due to the development of powerful computer engines. However, during this 1985 match, the adjournments were standard practice in chess tournaments. Games were usually adjourned overnight after 5 or maybe 6 hours of classical play. Sealed moves were required, meaning that the player had to write the next move on a piece of paper and give it to a tournament official, who would keep it in a sealed envelope. Players were allowed to consult with anyone to analyze the adjourned games. Usually in the World Championship matches, each player had a team who helped with the analysis of the adjourned games, as well as with preparation to other games. King h8 was played. Some moves were repeated, and bishop f5 was played. This move was obviously prepared in the overnight analysis. Engines show that white is winning here and show different play. For example, h4 is a favorite lines by engine. So bishop takes, g3, bishop g5, g2, and something like this with tactics here, one of engine main lines. But again, engines were not available, so bishop f5 was played. Okay, queen c3. Now white again repeats moves to gain some time and plays bishop f5, threatening. And now g3 was played. h4 is coming. King f8, king g2. Black cannot do much, so Karpov improves his king to better position before going for the final attack. Queen f6, offering trade. Obviously white cannot trade because it would be complete draw. Queen h7. Queen f7. Now black played tricky move. White should be careful. And Karpov played h4, good move here. Why careful? Because if rook e1, suddenly draw. Black plays queen g8, offering trade. And then offering trade again. And because bishop is hanging, the position would be repeated. So, but it was noticed, h4 was played, attacking bishop. Bishop moved. Rook regroups. And rook lift, going to f3 or maybe e3. d6, rook is coming. And now queen comes to other side somewhere. See, black king under attack. Queen comes from other side. Rook tries to defend. Check. And now rook comes to e4. Check was played. Check stopped by check. King f7. Oh, notice that cool move, rook e6, stopping check this way, due to pressure on diagonal not working. White has queen c4 here. The idea is that after rook taken, we have skewer on 7th rank and winning queen. So, king f7 was played. Check. King moved. Threatening checkmate on g8. Rook moved. Threatening checkmate on e8. And black resigned at this moment because cannot stop threats. Let's see what might happen. Why resigned? Rook e7. How do we attack? Check. Now if rook comes again, check. And let's say block. Again, check. Check. And bishop g6. King f8. Check. Checkmate. Something like this. So basically at this moment, attack was not stoppable because black is threatening on e-file and threatening to come on b8. Okay. We're done with our examples of the attacking play in the middle game with opposite colored bishops. Today, the biggest takeaway is the value of the initiative. Since neither bishop can challenge the other, the player who attacks first often wins. Also remember, in these situations, you're playing for control over a color complex. If your bishop is on the light squares and the opponent's bishop on the dark squares, the opponent has trouble defending the light squares that you're attacking. So you should use this extra bishop to exploit those unopposed diagonals, pushing for a win. Now it's your turn. Try to apply these principles in your own games. Please let me know in the comments how it goes. If you find this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more chess tips and lessons. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.